We preview 3, 2, 1. We talked about the East. Now let's do the West. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Let's continue to preview our 2025 Sunbelt Media Days, which has kind of turned into a Sunbelt preview for the 2025 season with our buddy Dominic Crosetto from Sun Belt Syndicate. We did the East. Now let's do the West as we shift gears. Let's start off with the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns welcoming in and welcoming back hometown hero Walker Howard. He is from the Sun Belt Syndicate. He is Dominic Crosetto, and he is Locked On Sunbelt. We're talking to Dominic Crosetto from Sun Belt Syndicate, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We're doing a kind of a 2025 Sunbelt preview, but it's mostly Sunbelt Media Days preview. Let's go to the other side. And Mike Desimo heading into year number, I guess is it 4? Is it 4? Well, yeah, 4.
Feels like,
right?
Feels like
it is
4.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah. I think it's 4.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
They all start to run together. I think you said that the other day when you were talking about some of the coaches' stuff. It's like it's hard to know.
I try to. The way I remember this is where I was.
Right.
I do think it's. I think he's heading into year number 4, and he's done a pretty good job. Billy Napier left, took a lot of the coaching staff with him, took a lot more of the players with him than he said he was, and some other players left. So he turned that around, went to a bowl game, went to another bowl game, lost that, and then ends up in the Sun Belt Championship. Has a big win over Wake, and ends up, would have had the Sun Belt Player of the Year, but Ben Woldridge gets hurt and goes to the Sun Belt Championship, playing at home with his backup quarterback, Chandler Fields. So he had a great year last year. They fell short. Michael Green and Marshall comes in along with Charles Huff, although Charles Huff was leaving and everybody knew about it, even though Charles Huff was denying it. I mean, Dominic, that led to a lot of content, which I did personally thank Charles Huff for.
Yeah.
But now you got Walker Howard, and I'm telling you this right now. I will correct myself many times because he's got his name backwards. But his name is Walker Howard. I think I missed watching him play high school. I think he came after I left to go to Mobile, but he played locally at STM. So I think he played with Jack Besh, who just got drafted by the NFL. Okay. So he played locally there, sat for, a couple years at LSU and Ole Miss. So he's got a lot of that Joe Burrow feel where he didn't play a lot, but apparently really talented. The Cajuns are picked again to win the West. They lost a ton. I guess they got some back, and they're opening a new stadium. They better fill that stadium. I'm telling you that right now. They will not hear the end of it from me outside of it being wet, because I'm not sitting in the rain either. They do have some late start times, so the sun will be down eventually. They're not starting at 6. Their first 2 home games are at 7. But Mike Desimo and the Cajuns are once again favored in the West to be contenders.
Yeah, and I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be. I think that championship game didn't feel like their game, and so that was a little surprising to see because it just didn't start well and it didn't improve all that much as it went along, which was a little bit of a shock. I expected a lot closer of a game there in that one. Weather obviously was a little bit of a factor going in just because of the field, but again, you're playing at home. I feel like
they got down to their third string quarterback is what happened.
That's also true. Yeah. And so that's not going to do you any favors there.
Not against that.
And now you've got Howard coming in. I'll just call him Howard. That makes it easier.
Sure. Right.
But a guy I asked about, speaking of media days last year, was Lunch Winfield.
Right.
And if what I was told is correct, he was down in Louisiana as a high schooler, played at a bigger classification and against tougher competition than Arch Manning, but because he didn't have Arch Manning as his name, was not the Gatorade Player of the Year, even though probably statistically he was better than the Gatorade Player of the Year in Arch Manning. So this is a kid who has immense talent. And even though Howard's going to be the starter going in, I don't think there's going to be any questioning that. I think it's going to be interesting to see how many, packages they'll have for lunch, because I think that's a guy.
By the way, I think that's his name. I don't think that's a nickname. I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Go on the website.
Yeah.
That's his name.
It should be, right? I mean, that's going to make you memorable, right? Like that's a name that sticks out. And apparently the reason for the name or nickname, or now if it's his full legal name, is because he just, had his lunchbox and he went to work, right? Like that's, you get the lunch nickname for that, I guess. But I don't know if that's just hearsay or what, but guy that when I asked Coach Des about him last year, he started just going off praising this kid with what he's been able to do, even when he hasn't been the healthiest. If they get him on the field, watch for some electric plays there. I don't know if it's a gadget play or what. You don't want to play too much with the 2-quarterback system, but they've had to do it in the past with some injuries, so it's not like he's been inexperienced on how to handle those situations. So it'll be interesting to see if we see a little bit more of an electric play or two coming from lunch on the field for the Cajuns and kind of round out that whole offense over there.
Well, I do think all these coaches know that to get, and Mike Desimo knows that, verbatim very well. That was the thing about why Billy Napier was so successful. Levi Lewis, in his last 3 years, started each and every game. Mike Desimo hasn't gotten through one season without playing a backup quarterback. And, a lot of times he's played 3 in one ball game. So he knows very well that he's got to have 2 quarterbacks raring to go, and lunch will be ready to play. But I would presume, based on talent, ability, and maybe finances, Walker Howard is going to be your starting quarterback for the Cajuns. And then we'll go to Texas State. Last year in the I did it. Last year in the Sun Belt, heading to the Pac-12 or ish, Pac-8-ish, if you will. I need to start with the quarterback, because they got the SMU transfer in, who Phil Steele reminded me of. You got Nate Yarnell from Pitt. You got Holden Garnier from Auburn, who couldn't get on the field there, and you got Brad Jackson, who's everyone think is gonna play. Until I know who the quarterback is, I don't know how good they're going to be, but they got them as a potential favorite as well. And it is interesting with Texas State, they didn't live up to expectations, but that's only because G.J. Kinney raised the standards. They had not had a winning season in a decade, and so he had the first winning season in a decade, and then they went, well, now you need to win the Sun Belt, because they got the Sun Belt Player of the Year, and it didn't work out that way. Although I'm more of a reasons guy than an excuse guy. They did lose to the Cajuns, and I'm telling you, Dominic, they lost by a fingernail, not a fingertip. The defensive lineman got a fingernail, and that turned into an interception, and that's how they lost the ball game. All right, so
they never beat the Cajuns, right?
They never beat the Cajuns. They were going to go down and they were going to score the game-winning field goal, but a defensive lineman, good on him, but it wasn't like he tipped it way up in the air. He deflected it barely, and that's how it became an interception. So that's the difference between winning and sometimes that's the difference between winning and losing. And that they got snake bit in that ball game. But he has raised the standards. They're going to have to get raised again. Going as much as I'm not in favor of the move, I certainly understand it. But Fresno State's good. We'll see what Oregon State and Washington State have left. Boise State obviously is a college football playoff. San Diego State hasn't been good the last couple of years, but apparently they've been good in the past, obviously. Utah State and Colorado State, not so much. So we'll see. But what do we think about Texas State? G.J. Kinney is always entertaining. There is a, cockiness to him. All right. It's a little bit beyond confidence, but we enjoy that. So we like to have fun with him as well. And he knows that going in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Brad Jackson has that Colton Joseph aspect to him. Probably not that same level necessarily, but he had that extend the play, use the legs more often. Can he develop into the pocket passer to round that game into form and become the starter? I don't know enough about the guys coming in just yet to say I think Jackson's going to be the guy over anybody else. But yeah, that's a hugely important role. They had a very serviceable quarterback, obviously, last year, and obviously he now has no more eligibility left to continue playing for any Sun Belt team since he moved from one to the other last year. But they also lose Ishmael Mahdi, which is a big loss to me in the backfield as he goes over to Arizona and becomes a Wildcat over there. I guess it was too close. He didn't want to be Arizona State with the loss to them last year. But that game was close. They had another game against, I think it was Sam Houston State in the NRG Stadium where they were up pretty big, and then they ended up losing that one. So they need these tightly contested battles to go the other direction. And I think they get Arizona State on the road this year. So that'll be a little interesting to see if they can get some payback there over in Sun Devil Stadium. And I guess it's probably named something now, something else than Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah, I don't know.
Isn't it? Okay. All right. Yeah, but that's an interesting aspect because I think that game was really close last year, but they have lost some of the weapons that made that game close. So have they brought that in? Is the defense still round into form? Because the year before, that was the question, right? Like, could the defense step up? You had the offense to outscore anybody, but the defense was hindering you a little bit. The defense definitely improved last year. Does it take another step forward, or have we lost enough guys that we either stay roughly the same or drop a little bit? And that's going to be what makes or breaks this last year in the Sun Belt for Texas State.
Let's take a time out. We'll continue our conversation with Sun Belt Syndicate's Dominic Crosetto about the Sun Belt West in the 2025 Media Days. We'll talk about Major Applewhite and the South Alabama Jaguars right after I tell you about FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's continue our conversation with the Sun Belt Syndicate's Dominic Crosetto, previewing the 2025 Sun Belt Media Days. We're over talking about the West, and we move on to South Alabama, and we're talking Major Applewhite and the South Alabama Jaguars. Talking to Dominic Crosetto, Sun Belt Syndicate. We are previewing 2025 Sun Belt Media Days, along with the Sun Belt, apparently. Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sun Belt, your teams every day. All right, one of the guys I love to tease, and he even admits it, is South Alabama's Major Applewhite. He knows what his resting face looks like, so which I've never heard in a press conference before, but he does say that. So we will do our best to make him smile and laugh. But South Alabama is still highly regarded, despite losing who I would have thought would have been the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, which is Gio Lopez. And Gio Lopez was coming back. People were worried that he was going to leave. But he said before the bowl game, although he was injured, he was coming back. And good for him. But then some guy named Belichick got a job, and he came calling with about $4 million. Can't look down on that, all right? Go get your money, Gio. Good for you. But yet, South Alabama still very highly regarded. I actually saw them. Someone had them favored over the Cajuns on some line today on Wednesday. It's Bishop Davenport and Zach Pyron are the quarterbacks. You do have Kentrell Bullock back. You have a voice in back. They might get the voice in locker room. Those guys are never leaving. They've been there forever. And I would tell you, I'm not sure I saw a better coaching job than what South Alabama did in the bowl game. Major Applewhite didn't have his quarterback, didn't have Fluff Bothwell, and didn't have his leading wide receiver, and they still won the bowl game. They played in the first bowl game, and so he had the least amount of time to prepare. So I thought that was really impressive on what he did in a bowl game. And so you do have the quarterback, I believe it's Davenport. And so we'll see what they can do. But the defense usually was really good, and they were just up and down all last year. They did go in and beat the Cajuns, but then they let a ball game like Georgia Southern slip away. So they did have a roller coaster of a year. What did he say? He said, he did say, winning with maturity or something like that, trying to finish off games that they should win. But he had a phrase for it. I'll have to go back and look at it. but he did have a phrase for it. So I'm looking forward to talking to Major Applewhite this year in New Orleans.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of those ones that I felt like he was pretty comfortable on the podium with the aspect of preaching to the people. I feel like he could be a Sunday preacher like that. That's just how he talks in his cadence and everything.
Right.
So it's kind of enjoyable to listen to some of these guys just go off on their explanations and what they want to say about their team before you get to ask questions. So I enjoyed interacting with Major Applewhite last year. And yeah, I think Davenport brings a lot to the field that Lopez did. So it's not this massive drop off that some people outside the Sun Belt probably aren't paying attention to enough. And you and I, Dave, know, and a lot of the people listening hopefully know what Davenport did on the field when he saw his time last year. Once again, it's how much further does that development continue to evolve? Because once again, when you don't have as much maturity in your game or as much time on the field as the starting quarterback, your passing game does suffer a little bit. So can he bring that around? But they could score on anybody. I mean, look no further than the App State midweek game last year where they just exploded on national television.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just like Texas State questioning the defense, it's kind of the same realm. Like, do you have a fully well-rounded team to take advantage of the offensive aspect? But you've really got to have, as we've seen in this conference repeatedly, you have to have a defense at the very least be formidable, but hopefully be excellent because that's going to help win you these games when you've got X factors at the quarterback positions.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the end of Sean Clark in Boone, North Carolina. That ball game. Losing is one thing; getting embarrassed on national TV is another. Talking to Dominic Crosetto, Sun Belt Syndicate, along with Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, let's talk about some other teams. Wrapping it up here in the West. Let's go to Detroit. Let's go to Jared Parker. Again, I'm a reasons guy compared to an excuses guy. When you're back to your third string quarterback, you're going to struggle. Goose Crowder went down, very early. Matthew Caldwell is going to take a little bit of time to get going, and he did towards the end of the year. They gave Arkansas State all they could handle. They came up with some big wins against Georgia Southern, and they won some ball games towards the end. And, that loss against the Cajuns looks like a 21-point loss, which it was, but it was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter before a couple of turnovers made it a blowout. And so Goose Crowder's back. Matthew Caldwell is backing somebody up. He actually transferred to back somebody up. But we'll see where it's a tough West, so it's tough to move up in the conference and in the division, but I like the direction if Goose Crowder can stay healthy, and that's a big if. Plus, how can you not be rooting for a guy named Goose? Just like lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great football name. It's a great name in general. And definitely we want to see him stay healthy this year because I think that is going to be the way Troy goes because of what his importance is to that program. And I think Parker's going to be fine as a coach. I know some Troy fans are questioning that decision after how last year started. But I do think you look towards the end of last season to see the capability of what he can do when he has not necessarily a healthier roster, but a more experienced roster to get to that point. And I'm not the type of person who thinks that carries over from the season. Oh, they went on this winning streak to, they played better at the end. It's going to mean they're going to start next season great. I don't think that's going to hold true necessarily in an overarching storyline, but I think it plays well to Parker after coming out of that first season and trying to get into this year two with saying, okay, I know some of the tendencies of these coaches. I know what I have in my team and what we can put on the field. So I think Troy's going to be just fine. I think they maybe not at the top, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them right there 3-4 at the worst this year and make a pretty big jump up in those standings in the West.
Well, somebody who you can have some fun with did ask him about his first game, right? And he's off the bus. Didn't know which way to go after the Trojan walk. Am I
remember
left or am I walking right? So I remember he's like, I got to follow somebody. So, I love when you get a little honest answer. I'm leading all these guys and I'm not sure which way to go. I planned all this stuff. I know what to do once I get into the locker room. I don't know which way to go. I like the honesty from these guys. Let's take one more time out. We'll come back, wrap up our conversation with Dominic Crosetto from the Sun Belt Syndicate. We talk about the big-time move that happened during the offseason or right after the end of last season. As it turns out, Charles Huff moving from Marshall, taking his quarterback with him, Braylon Braxton, going to Southern Miss. We'll do that right after I thank everybody We continue to rock and roll. Over 2,300 subscribers, like 100 already in July. I was trying to get to 150 in July. We may be at 150 by the end of the day. That's halfway through the month. We're absolutely going to clear 200 by the end of the month. Thank you so much. It has been a wild ride. Who knew it could be this popular? Really appreciative. We're on pace for a record-setting audio month. Don't forget about those audio podcasts. Really appreciate it while you're cleaning up, working out, taking a walk around the neighborhood. It is sincerely appreciated. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Thank you so much. We're going to be, again, way over the 2,500 before kickoff, and we'll probably finish the year somewhere around 3,000. We could be 3,000 before kickoff. Who knows? The way we've been growing by leaps and bounds, and all those La Tech fans could be joining us before they even join the conference. So really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, let's wrap up our conversation with the Sun Belt Syndicate's Dominic Crosetto. We talk about Charles Huff moving on from Marshall to Southern Miss. We talk about Brian Vincent's success at ULM, and we talk about Arkansas State and Jalen Raynor. See if they can take it another notch. Why everybody is not high on them is Raynor is heading into his third season as the starting quarterback for the Red Wolves. So let's get to the elephant in the room, Southern Miss. I think they're going to be better than everybody has them. I think the over-under is like 4.5. Braylon Braxton leading the charge. Again, I'm not sure anybody is nearly as excited as I am for a game that has two teams that combine for 3 wins. Southern Miss hosting Mississippi State. I do think, honestly, I'm not just saying it. I do think Southern Miss is going to win that football game. I'm not very high on Mississippi State at all. I think Jeff Lebby got a job that Kane Womack should have got. I don't mind saying that. And I think that's the reason that Kane Womack ended up in Alabama as a defensive coordinator instead of the head coach at Mississippi State. But that's a different episode of Locked On Sunbelt. But I think Southern Miss is going to be much better. Some people have them contending in the West. That may be a little bit much. But I do think Charles Huff, I had him as the best coach in the West. That could be one of the surprises, is how good Southern Miss could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they could do the Big 12 thing and go from Arizona State being picked, bottom of the conference preseason to be at the top. I'm with you. I don't know if I see quite that big of a jump. I think, you're rebuilding a roster at the same time and still have to get guys to gel and the chemistry together. It's not just move all these guys over and the same thing happens twice, right? So I do agree with you. I don't know if I see them right at the top, but I think they could be right there with Troy in that 3-4 spot, meet pretty quickly, because I do think this is one of those teams that's going to flip the record, pretty well. I don't think they're going to be at the bottom of this conference at all. So I think they'll take a certain jump this year. And then ULM, right? We talk about Vincent and what he's got on the field.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on him going into year 2? It started off so well in year 1, and then it got a little tougher. But really, a lot of those losses you just talked about the other day, really close 1-score games.
Yeah, they need a little bit more protection, I think. I think the competition, I had some people reach out and saying all of a sudden that competition is getting tougher, and it did. There wasn't a whole lot of protection up front trying to pass. Right. They were one-trick pony, which was a really good one-trick pony in Ahmad Hardy. And you didn't want to start talking about it because you didn't want to, bring it to existence, but you knew he was going to transfer out just like Fluff. Now, one went to Missouri and one went to Mississippi State. So we'll see, we'll see Fluff take it on Southern Miss. But here's the other thing, right? Again, Monroe may be the toughest job in college football. All right. But, we don't have to sugarcoat it. It is tough. All right. And, a couple of days ago, just last week, we'll just say, when we're talking about La Tech, whether they're coming in or not, and ULM wants them in to save them money, I'm not sure how much money that is. I'm not sure it's 7 figures. And when, you're trying to save a few $100,000 and other people are saying, if you need, La Tech in there to save a couple $100,000, maybe FBS is not at your level. All right. And so it's a tough spot. But for the first time in a long time, Brian Vincent had some excitement in that stadium. All right. There were fans there, and it's fun to see. And you try not to say this, but there was really the home field advantage. It's a very odd home field advantage for Monroe before he got there for a few years, because teams would lose going up to Monroe because you got to bring your own juice. When you go on the road, all right, and there's this whole home field advantage, say going to Baton Rouge or something like that, or you're going to Tennessee, there's nothing better for the road team to silence the crowd. When you silence 100,000, or if you're going into, App State and quieting 35, 40,000, or Marshall, you're quieting 30,000. That's great. It's not a big deal when 2,000 or 3,000 are showing up in Monroe, and everybody can hear the quarterback signals. You got to get everybody excited. There's no adrenaline. The adrenaline is not pumping up. You have to pump up yourself, and so it's an odd feeling. And sometimes you lose at Monroe because of that. Now, this past year, Vincent had them playing well, and then he played footsies with Jacksonville State. And so he came back. I'm concerned that he's going to play footsies again because he may have another goodish season, and he's realizing the tough job that Monroe is. That's the only thing. If you don't have any, you can tell me all how lunch pail and how hard you guys work and you're drinking out of a hose and all those cliches. But if you don't have any NIL money, that's tough. We're not talking, a few million for the house settlement stuff.
Right.
You need something, right? You need to keep the kid who wants to go to school at home. You need to find the 5 figures to let him go to school at home.
Yeah. The one thing that they had that probably played to their advantage in a couple different aspects was so many local kids that had stayed from West Monroe or Monroe on their roster last year. I think they had 15, 16 guys.
It's not like there's not talent in northern Louisiana.
Right. So, and hopefully that brings family and friends to the stadium and helps kind of bring this juice like you're talking about that wasn't there previously, right? Like, we're playing for our hometown, our home area. It means more to us. We want to go out there and succeed. Once again, quarterback play didn't live up to expectation, right? They had the big transfer quarterback by name, didn't really work out. But like you said, it was probably more because it didn't protect them well enough to.
Well, it didn't have a whole lot of weapons. Yeah, the offensive line didn't have a whole lot of weapons.
Yeah, and now they do lose a really good running back, as you said, but they bring in a Minnesota transfer. So a kid from a power institution. It's Minnesota. It's not, the top of the Big Ten necessarily, but this kid looks like he could be pretty good too. So I don't know how much of a loss you have at the running back position. You might have kind of reloaded there pretty well.
All right.
But once again, now we've got to get, Armenta is going to be the guy maybe. I don't know. I haven't heard a ton coming out of that camp yet.
I would presume it's Aiden Armenta. Yeah.
Yeah. I was impressed with what I saw from him. Once again, it's the maturity. How does he get into this bigger role this year going in all likelihood? But the defense played really well. So if they don't have a long drop off there, the offense just improves a little bit, and they're winning more of those 1-score games and possibly jumping up quite a few spots in the standings. But yeah, going in, you can see why, unfortunately for them, that they are kind of thought about towards the back end of this conference, at least on the west side.
Didn't they win 2 ball games last year? They scored a bunch of points last year, and I don't think they had 200 yards passing combined.
I think you're right.
In 2 ball games last year, right? And they were able to win 2 ball games. So
yeah, if you were trying to hide Hardy, you did a bad job of it because he was the focal point on the stat sheet every week.
So that was So that was it. All right, and then again, we're talking Arkansas State. I don't understand why everybody is down on Arkansas State. You got the running back coming back. You got Rucker coming back. You got Jalen Rayner coming back. Phil Steele did say they won a lot of close ball games, so usually those flip the other way. I look at it the other way. I look at Jalen Rayner maturing, whereas in his freshman year, he sort of panicked if he didn't play well at the beginning of the game. Whereas I thought in his sophomore year, I'm in a ball game, I can go win it. Doesn't matter what I did in the first 3 quarters. Let's go win it in the 4th. Now in his junior year, I want to see him be more consistently great. Whereas instead of trying to go down and win it, now I'm up by 7. Let's go up by 2 scores. So now the last 5 minutes, I just need some first downs and I can take a knee to win the ball game. That's what I'm looking for. Instead of having these close games where I got to win it, I'm going to be good to begin with and not have to save the day at the end.
Yeah, and he's won, I think, ever since he got that Manning Passing Academy award in the offseason.
Oh, wow.
He really came into that pocket presence as quarterback, and he was rushing less, hopefully keeping him healthier longer too, right, as his position goes. You got the wide receiver, like you said, the running back. The defense, it had its moments. I think I'm kind of thinking like you. First of all, I had Arkansas State much higher last year, right? I thought they would be a team that could challenge towards the top of this West Division as soon as last year. So, yeah, I definitely have them up towards the top again this year because, like you said, I think this is I don't know if it was toying around with it too much or what was going on at the beginning of these games, but you're right. They never really paced themselves properly, and they came on really strong at the end. I said, if they just played like this more often, they'd have won this game easily. Like Central Arkansas is a perfect example. Why are you playing around with an FCS team like that?
Right.
You don't want to drop that game. And by the end of it, well, maybe they shouldn't have won, right? Because we see that replay and we're like, well, did he really get it?
That's right.
But, I mean, it should have never been that close because when they came on strong at the end, they were obviously the more dominant team. So why didn't we see that before? So maybe it's a prep, right? Like, hey, get these guys ready to play faster out of the gate. Butch Jones has that experience, so I don't think it's that. But I don't know if there's something personally that all these guys need to hit on and then they're going to find their stride. But if they do, I'm like you. I think much higher of Arkansas State than what I'm seeing on most pieces of paper these days.
Yeah, and what you don't see these days usually is what Butch Jones has done, right? He came in there, he had a couple of good recruiting classes, and the problem what you get is, well, you get these good recruiting classes and you think they should be great immediately, but they need time to mature, even with the transfer portal. Those are just filling holes. And so what did he do? He cleaned house, then they went to a bowl game. They lost that. Then they went to a bowl game and they won that. And now this is year 4. I think they're going to contend in the West. Of course, I thought South Alabama was going to win it a few years ago, and they fell on their face, and I looked bad.
Oh man, I took a chance when Troy moved over from the East to the West. I was one of the only ones I think that I saw, and it probably seemed silly at the time, that said I think Troy could win the West in their first year, and then they did. But I got the other side in the East way wrong, so they kind of evened out in the end.
Well, I'll tell you. So I will admit this. Phil Steele had that. He thought there was a ton of talent there, and that the coach was making the difference. Was that replacing Chip Lindsey, or is that 2 coaches ago? Whoever Summerall replaced, they thought that was a really good fit. Although they had a couple of different quarterbacks, but it's amazing what Summerall did that year. It was like, we're going to run the ball and we're going to play defense. And we may even just run the ball and try and get a couple of first downs and kick the ball away because you ain't moving it against us. And that was against Carlton Marshall and company. So,
yeah. I think that the guy before him or the guy after Chip Lindsey, because the guy that's at West Virginia, is it Brown? Not Brown, right?
No, he didn't replace. Summerall didn't replace. Did Summerall replace Neil Brown? No.
No, Neil Brown was already gone. So Chip Lindsey was in between. So then it was.
Okay. Troy had losing records. Yes.
Gotcha.
Neil Brown was there in like 16.
Okay.
I was at the LSU Troy game. You want to hear a quiet? Nice. You want to hear a quiet Tiger Stadium? Well, that was 16. That was when That's when Orgeron took over. So it's been 18. That's when Orgeron took over. They won it in 19.
Yeah.
And so that would have been 18, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Something along those lines. Yeah. So I was there for that ball game.
Nice. That's a good one to be there for.
Yeah, that was a bad locker room. Oh,
I bet.
I would say the morning show on Monday was lively. I would tell you that one. That's, again, providing me plenty of content. All right, Dominic Crosetto, Sun Belt Syndicate. We may, because this went an hour, you may have given me Monday and Tuesday's episode.
There we go.
All right. I really appreciate the time, man. It's unfortunate you won't be in New Orleans. You will not be able to buy me the bourbons that you owe me. I don't know why you owe me bourbons, but I'm just saying that you do.
There we go. I'll happily buy one if I somehow get to do something here soon. Maybe I'll come up and see you in Kentucky instead.
I'm the one who works at the distillery, and I'm saying you owe me the bourbons.
Yeah. Well, just, the first one's on me, and the second 3 and 4.
You come see me at the distillery. I'm pouring.
There you go. I like it.
I appreciate it. Dominic Crosetto, Sun Belt Syndicat. We're doing a little 2025 Sun Belt Media Days preview. Really appreciate you hopping on Locked On Sun Belt. We will talk to you again soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.